Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today, to mark its release on Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack, we're going to be reviewing for you Donkey Kong 64 on the Nintendo 64. This review was originally written by the wonderful Connor McMahon and has been adapted for video by me. And stick around to the end to hear some thoughts specific to the Nintendo Switch Online version. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things.
Donkey Kong.
At the mere mention of Nintendo's 64-bit console, many of us find it difficult not to get swept up in a wave of nostalgia. We drift aimlessly through countless memories of flickering TV screens and eye-popping graphics, washing up on the shores of 3D gaming's first bold steps onto a Nintendo platform. Whilst it was the mustachio plumber himself who first triple-jumped his way to the forefront of this revolution, it wasn't long until the competition got hairy. Donkey Kong 64 originally swung onto store shelves back in 1999, at a time when British developer Rare had already impressed with such acclaimed titles such as GoldenEye 007 and, of course, Banjo-Kazooie. Anyone who's played the latter will instantly pick up on the similarities that DK's outing shares with the Bear and Bird, but Rare's key innovation this time around was the inclusion of a whopping 5 playable characters. Don't get too excited just yet, though. You're gonna need to rescue them first. King K. Rool has set up shop right on the outskirts of DK Island, ready to blow the whole place to smithereens just as soon as his crew of slacker Kremlings manage to power up their deadly weapon. In true supervillain style, he's managed to capture a few key members of the DK crew, but allows Donkey Kong himself to run free and gather up enough golden bananas to confront the Foul King head-on, should he wish. The game gets off to somewhat of a slow start with a mandatory training section. In true 3D platformer fashion, you'll be swimming, jumping, climbing, and brawling all throughout your adventure, so it's worth taking the time to get comfortable. Fans of the Donkey Kong Country series will quickly realize that although the familiar faces are all here, well, things have changed. Cranky Kong has decided to plumb the depths of scientific knowledge and create bubbling potions that grant new powers, whilst Funky Kong has gone completely gun crazy, now intent on making sure the Kongs are fully locked and loaded with the latest gear. Oh, and Wrinkly Kong? Yeah, she died, but that doesn't stop her from offering helpful hints before each level. Throw in some musical instruments because why not at this point? And you've got a hugely versatile set of abilities with which to explore and sprawling levels that make full use of them all. The graphics, for their time, are absolutely fantastic. The lighting effects, detailed textures, and lively animations all bring everything to life in a way that was rarely seen on the platform. Seeing a soft-hearted Chunky Kong beg you not to choose him on the character select screen is a particular highlight, showcasing a sense of personality that's become so associated with Rare's adventures. Similarly, Grant Kirkhope's soundtrack is as polished as ever, always fitting the moment and changing dynamically as you move from dark caves to hot desert sands. But going back to the pacing, once you've finished with that initial tutorial, stepped out into the hub world and found your first golden banana, the game begins to build steam very quickly. Frankly, it can be a little bit overwhelming with so many things to do and see that it feels downright excessive. DK64 is a collectathon through and through, with a plethora of items to find around every single corner, and then a few more just for good measure. You've got hundreds of bananas per level, as well as banana medals, coins, and fairies, battle crowns, boss keys, and this isn't even counting ammo for your weapons, crystal coconuts for your special abilities, or film for your camera. It's intense, to say the least, and amplified by the fact that certain items are color-coded so that only a specific member of the Kong family can pick them up. Having 5 playable characters sounds like a huge amount of fun on paper, especially since they all come with their own unique abilities, but it's actually pretty frustrating in practice. For example, you switch to Donkey Kong to pick up some yellow bananas and spot an ability pad that only Lanky can activate. So you go back to the tag barrel, return with Lanky, only to find that the switch opens a door filled with coins that only Tiny can collect. This would be massively alleviated if you could change between Kongs on command, but as it is, it's a real chore having to go back and forth from specific specific points just to make sure you get everything. The levels themselves range from the usual lush jungles to ghostly sunken galleons and intricate factories, with bosses to cap them off. There are 25 golden bananas to find all over each stage, 5 per character, and they can broadly speaking be picked up in any order and at any time you like, offering a great sense of freedom. There's actually less of an emphasis here on platforming than you might expect, which is almost a relief given the number of times you have to navigate the same areas, but the fun creative worlds do help to alleviate the fatigue somewhat. It's a delicate complaint to make since so many fans are quite happy to dive right into an expansive collectathon, but the key difference between this and other platformers is that a lot of your time with DK64 feels utterly repetitive. Unless you're going for 100% or more accurately 101%, it's not a particularly difficult game by any means, except perhaps maybe the final boss, so it's really only patience that rewards the player. You'll end up traversing a series of obstacles only to discover that you need to do it again as a different Kong in order to activate a switch that unveils more switches. We much preferred shorter bursts of play to keep motivated, because there really is a great deal of satisfaction to be found in eventually clearing an area. We're going to stress the point that for its time, this is a very beefy game, with upwards of 30 hours of gameplay just to reach the end credits. Going after that elusive 101% completion will take even longer, and the inclusion of a fully compatible multiplayer mode makes for even better value. Speaking of which, it's standard enough, but it serves up a decent dose of competitive split-screen action. If you've got a hankering for some walnut, peanuts, and/or pineapple smells, as well as a jungle full of collectibles to seek out and claim for your own, then Donkey Kong 64 is a very safe bet indeed. Whether you're a newcomer or a nostalgic fan stopping by once more, there's a huge amount to see and do on DK Island, and plenty of fun discoveries to make along the way. In the harsh light of modern opinion, however, some of the rose-tinted sheen has definitely worn off, and a sense of repetition sets in before too long. The excitement of multiple playable characters is dampened by color-coded pickups, forcing you to retread old ground up to 5 times just to collect everything. This will still appeal to some, but definitely frustrate others. DK64 is an imperfect adventure platformer with a bunch of personality, so if you're up for a challenge and have plenty of time to kill, then go ape, my friend. Donkey Kong 64, you're getting a 7 out of 10 from us. Now that the formal stuff is out of the way, it's time for Alex's personal thoughts, and as promised, I'm going to be focusing primarily on this new version available on Nintendo Switch Online, or Nintendo Classics, or whatever it is they're calling it this weekend. Overall, the emulation seems relatively decent. There doesn't seem to be any glaring issues as far as I can tell. The only thing that really disappointed me was the fact that the surround sound doesn't work, but I don't know whether that's common. You know, I'm aware that the N64 used like 4.0 surround sound or something bizarre like that, so I don't know whether that can easily be converted or something like that. Suffice it to say, it does not work on Switch 2, or presumably Switch as well, which I haven't tested. Widescreen works, as you've probably been able to tell from the review, but you do get this really quite ugly black border around the whole thing, and I think I know why it is the way it is, but it's still a little bit disappointing that, you know, you're going to have to deal with this. It'd be really nice if it was full screen, and this is the case whether it's handheld or docked. There's another curiosity when playing in widescreen mode, and that's that the aspect ratio will sort of shift. It's almost slightly anamorphic or something like that, where suddenly the image will get a little bit thinner or a little bit wider. It's most obvious in the tag barrel when you go in. It'll be just as you expect it to begin with, and then it'll go and shrink in a little bit. It's not major or anything like that, it's just an interesting curiosity. You see it in cutscenes as well, although it's nowhere near as obvious. This may have been the case on original hardware as well, I don't know, because I wasn't rich enough to have a widescreen CRT growing up. Performance is generally good, particularly compared to the original hardware, which shouldn't be surprising really, but what's quite interesting is that the timing of most things still lines up appropriately, most notably in the intro cutscene. I have what I believe to be a real memory, although it could also not be, of the Wii U version having the timings completely off for the intro cutscene, so the music did not match up to what was happening on screen. As I say, that may be a false memory, I might be making it up, but I can say for certain it's not present on Switch. 2. There are some micro stutters when you're loading in new areas, particularly when you pan the camera around and suddenly you're looking down sort of like a hallway or a corridor that's going to have another room behind it. You'll get these little micro stutters, which is kind of annoying. I don't know if that's a limitation of the game engine itself. You know, quite often this is the case. Realistically, the Switch 2 has more than enough processing power in order to be able to deal with a game like this and emulate it properly. But again, sometimes these micro stutters are just unavoidable. But I'm not a developer. I could be talking absolute nonsense. All I know is that they're here, and it's generally okay. One interesting thing that I remember from previous releases of this game is the fact that the game on the original hardware was clearly heavily utilizing that gated joystick, you know, the sort of octagonal sort of indents on the control stick on the N64 controller, because here, trying to go in a straight line is bloody difficult. A lot of games will have a range at the top of the control stick where that will just be go forward. Not here. It seems to be completely full, like infinite 360 degrees of movement. So going in like a dead straight line, not especially easy, but it's fine. Just an interesting curiosity I thought I'd mention. Speaking of controls, they've done a reasonable job translating the N64's controls to the Switch 2. It's the same with any of these games, really. They were working with 6 face buttons, and as a result, things don't always translate super well. But, you know, it's okay. There are a few things like throwing an orange grenade. You have to hold ZL and press right on the right stick, which is a little bit bizarre. You can also hold ZL, ZR, and then press A. That works as well. It's definitely a little bit unusual, but you get used to it. You get used to it. But at the end of the day, this is still Donkey Kong 64, and while it might be a bit of a Marmite game for a lot of people, you either love it or you hate it, I really enjoy it. You know, yes, it definitely does have a lot of repetition involved, and you're doing the same sort of areas repeatedly. You go down one corridor and you go, oh god, there's a load of red bananas there. Okay, I need to come back here with Diddy at some point. But you go through, and then you find there's a load of tokens for Tiny, and it's like, oh god, I have to come back here as Tiny again. It does get a little bit much, but you don't actually have to play as much of the game as I remember. I sort of semi-steamed through in order to get footage, and you only need 15 bananas to get into Frantic Factory? Who knew?